walls have just come down. You need to understand what that means. Not as a Sunday school lesson, not as a flannel board memory from childhood. You need to understand what it actually looked like to be standing in the Judean desert and the dead. On the morning the city of Jericho fell, Jericho was not a small town. Jericho was one of the oldest fortified cities on earth. Archaeologists have found evidence of settlements there, dating back 10,000 years. Its walls were thick enough to build houses inside them. Its gates were sealed with bronze. Its soldiers had watched Israel camp outside for 6 days and laughed. What kind of army marches in circles? And then, on the seventh day, on the seventh pass, the priests blew the ram's horns, and 2 million people screamed at the top of their lungs. And the walls came down, not cracked, not weakened, down, flat, all at once. Josephus, the Jewish historian writing in the 1st century, records the moment with the kind of awe that still comes through after 2,000 years. The city that had never fallen, the city that had laughed at them, flat. This is the context you need, because what happens next only makes sense if you understand what Israel was, riding in that moment. They were not a nervous army praying for a lucky break. They were the people of a God who had just leveled the most fortified city in Canaan with a sound wave. They were unstoppable. They knew it. Everyone in Canaan knew it. The spies had reported back weeks earlier that the people of Canaan were already melting with fear. The walls are down, the city is burning, and in the rubble, in the smoke and the heat and the chaos of conquest, one man bends down. His name is Achan. He is from the tribe of Judah, son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah. His lineage will matter later. It will matter more than he can imagine. Right now, crouching in the wreckage of a burning city, his hands moving through the rubble, he sees it first, a robe, not just any robe, a Babylonian garment, heavy and beautiful, worth more than anything he has ever owned. He picks it up, holds it. Nobody is looking. Then he sees the silver, 200 shekels, a laborer's wages for 3 years. His hands are shaking. Then the gold bar, 50 shekels, a weight that has no business being in his hands. He looks left, he looks right, and he digs. Here is what you need to know about that moment. Before the walls fell, before the first footstep crossed into Jericho, Joshua had given a command came back directly from God. He called it Herem. The Hebrew word is herem. It means devoted to destruction, a sacred ban, a total consecration of captured goods to God alone. Every piece of silver, every piece of gold, every bronze item was to go directly into the treasury of the Lord. Every other thing, livestock, buildings, structures, was to be burned. This was not a suggestion. This was not a recommendation for the men who felt spiritually motivated. This was the command given to every person in the army of Israel. The reason matters. Jericho was the first fruits of the conquest, the first city, and in Jewish agricultural law, the first fruits of any harvest belonged entirely to God. Not a tithe, not a portion, not a significant percentage. The whole first yield, all of it. God was making the same claim on the first city of Canaan, all of it, every coin, every bar, every thread. Achan knew this. He had heard the same command you just heard. He had stood in the same assembly. He had nodded along like everyone else, and he dug a hole under his tent and buried a Babylonian robe, 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold. Stay with me, because 36 men are about to die, and not one of them knows it yet. 3 days pass. The camp of Israel is still celebrating. You can imagine it, the music, the storytelling, the men describing the exact moment they heard the walls collapse. Children are asking their fathers to tell the story again. Again, the God of Israel just did the impossible, and everyone is still standing inside the miracle, still a little stunned by it, still rehearsing it to make sure it really happened. Joshua sends scouts to the next target, a city called Ai. The scouts come back with a confident report. Ai is small. Its population, they estimate, is only around 12,000 people. Its military force is negligible compared to Jericho. Do not send the whole army, they tell Joshua. Send 2,000 or 3,000 men. Do not exhaust the whole army for a city this size. This is a mop-up operation, a formality after Jericho. Joshua listens to them. He sends 3,000 men. Here is what you need to understand about those 3,000 men. They are not random soldiers assigned to an unpleasant duty. They are fathers and sons and brothers. They are men who walked around Jericho for 7 days in faith. They are men who believed that the God who parted the Red Sea was still marching with them through Canaan. They leave for Ai carrying the confidence of people who have seen the impossible and expect to see it again. The men of Ai come out to meet them, and Israel runs, not retreats, not withdraws strategically, runs. The Hebrew text uses the same language for a panicked rout. 36 men are cut down in the chase, killed on the slopes east of the city, their bodies left on the ground in the dust between Ai and a place called Shebarim. 36 men. We do not know their names. The text does not give us their names. But you should sit with that for a moment. 36 men with names their mothers gave them, with wives who did not yet know they were widows, with children who were going to wait at the edge of camp tonight for a father who was never coming back. 36 men who had no idea that the reason they were dying had nothing to do with them. Now watch what happens next. Joshua falls on his face before the ark of the Lord. He tears his clothes. He puts dust on his head, and he stays there prostrate, broken, confused until evening. The elders of Israel are with him, all of them face down, silent, trying to understand why the God who leveled Jericho with a shout abandoned 3,000 soldiers outside a city of 12,000. And Joshua prays. His prayer is, and you need to hear this honestly, a prayer of near despair. He cries out, "Why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites, to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side." He sounds in this moment less like a conqueror and more like a man at the end of his rope. He sounds like Moses in the wilderness. He sounds, if you are honest, like you have sounded on the nights when the thing that was supposed to work fell apart and you could not figure out why. And God's answer stops everything. God does not comfort him. God does not say, "I know this is hard. I see your pain." God says, "Get up. Why are you lying on your face?" That is a rebuke, a direct, unambiguous rebuke. And if you are a person who has ever mistaken grief for holiness, who has ever confused spiritual mourning with spiritual action, this moment will rearrange something inside you, because God is not moved by Joshua's prostration in this moment. God is moved by the sin in the camp. And lying on your face crying is not the same as dealing with the thing that caused the crisis. Israel has sinned, God says. They have violated the covenant. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen. They have lied. They have put them among their own belongings. The Hebrew word for what Achan did is ma'al. It means treachery against a sacred trust. The worst kind of breach, not just against a rule, but against a relationship, against a covenant, against the God who had just publicly demonstrated that he was more powerful than any army in Canaan. "I will not be with you anymore," God says, "unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction." Unless you destroy it, not manage it, not moderate it, not come to terms with it, destroy it. Now the hard part begins. God gives Joshua a procedure. Tomorrow morning, the entire nation of Israel will assemble, all 12 tribes, all the clans, all the families, every household, and the lot will be cast. The casting of lots in ancient Israel was not gambling. You need to understand this. The Urim and Thummim, sacred objects kept in the high priest's breastplate, were used to determine God's will in specific decisions. Josephus describes the lot-casting process in his Antiquities of the Jews as a solemn, sacred procedure that the entire nation understood was not random chance but divine selection. when the lot fell on a tribe, on a clan, on a family, on a household. It was understood that God himself was pointing. Think about what it felt like to be standing in that assembly the next morning. 2 million people, the whole nation, lined up, waiting, every man in that crowd who had taken something, even a small thing, even a trinket, even something he told himself didn't really count. Every man with a secret is standing in that crowd with a specific and terrible feeling in his chest right now, because the lot is being cast and God is doing the casting. Here's what most people miss about this moment. The text does not say the lot was cast and it immediately landed on Achan. The process was methodical, deliberate, almost agonizingly slow. First, the tribes. 12 tribes stand before Joshua. The lot falls on Judah. Did Achan's stomach drop? Did his hands go cold? We are not told, but you know what it feels like when something you have been hiding is moving toward the surface. You know the particular panic of watching a situation narrow around you and not being able to stop it. The clans of Judah come forward. The lot falls on the Zerahites, Achan's clan. The families of the Zerahites come forward. The lot falls on Zebdi's family, Achan's family. The households of Zabdi's family come forward, man by man, one by one. The lot falls on Achan. There is a moment here, and the text captures it with painful restraint, where Joshua speaks to him, not as an interrogator, not as a judge delivering sentence. Joshua says, "My son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and honor him. Tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me, my son." Joshua calls him my son, even here, even at the bottom of the worst moment of Achan's life, with 36 graves already dug and the anger of God still fresh in the air. Joshua says, "My son," and Achan confesses. His words are brief. That is what strikes you when you read them. After everything, after the defeat of Ai, after the 36 deaths, after the entire nation assembled, after the lots narrowed across tribes and clans and families and households down to this single man, his confession is quiet. It is true. I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I have done. When I saw in the plunder a beautiful robe from Babylon, 200 shekels of silver and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent with the silver underneath. I saw, I coveted, I took. 3 verbs. The same 3 verbs that echo from the very beginning of human failure in the garden. She saw the fruit was pleasing. She desired it. She took it. Eve's sequence and Achan's sequence are the same sequence. And if you are honest with yourself, they are your sequence too. The thing you wanted, the moment you stopped telling yourself no. The action you took before you could think it all the way through. I saw. I coveted. I took. Joshua sends messengers to the tent. They run. They find it exactly where Achan said it was. The robe, the silver, the gold, all of it buried under the tent floor exactly as he described. They bring it out and lay it before Joshua and before all the people of Israel. There it is, a beautiful Babylonian robe, 200 shekels of silver, a gold bar. And here is the weight of that moment that you cannot afford to miss. Those 3 items, and whatever they were worth in the markets of the ancient Near East, were worth less than nothing compared to what they cost. They cost 36 men their lives. They cost 3,000 soldiers their confidence. They cost the entire nation of Israel a military defeat that had to be explained to every surrounding nation watching the campaign. They cost Joshua a night of grief, so deep he tore his own clothing. They cost Israel the presence of God in battle, a robe, some silver, a bar of gold. Here is the part nobody tells you. The text says that when Achan confessed, he did not beg for mercy. He did not bargain. He did not attempt to explain or minimize or contextualize. He simply told the truth. I saw it. I wanted it. I took it. There is something in that, even in this terrible moment, that reads as a kind of broken dignity. He finally, at the very end, told the truth he should have told at the beginning. But the truth came too late. They take Achan to the Valley of Achor. His sons and daughters come with him, his cattle, his donkeys, his sheep, his tent, and all that he had, everything. The entire assembly of Israel follows. Joshua says to him, "Why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today." And Israel stones him. This is the hardest moment in this story, and you cannot soften it. You cannot skip past it. You cannot reframe it into a gentler theological lesson and pretend the Valley of Achor was not a real place where a real man and his family died under the weight of real stones on a real afternoon in ancient Canaan. The text says they raised over Achan a great heap of rocks. That heap became a landmark. It stayed there. People walked past it for generations, and they named the valley Achor. The Hebrew word Achor comes from the root Achar, to trouble, to make turbid, to stir up what was clear. Achan's very name carries the echo of that word. The man whose name meant trouble. The valley that bore his name forever, 36 men. This is where we resolve what was planted at the beginning of this story. 36 men died at Ai. Their names are not in the text. We do not know if any of them had sons who would carry their lineage. We do not know if their widows ever remarried or lived the rest of their lives, waiting for a man who was never coming back. We do not know what their last moments looked like, whether they died confused, calling out to God, wondering why the divine protection they had counted on at Jericho had simply vanished. They died because one man, in the rubble of a burning city, decided his private desire was more important than God's public command. This is the weight of hidden sin that the book of Joshua wants you to feel in your chest. Not as a metaphor, not as a theological category, as weight, because here is what the story of Achan insists, and what we spend enormous energy trying not to believe. Your private life is not private. The decisions you make in the dark, the things you bury under the floor of your tent, the compromises you have told yourself nobody will ever find, they do not stay buried. They never stay buried. They move through the people around you like an invisible current, touching lives you did not intend to touch, shaping outcomes you never mapped, costing people prices you never agreed to pay on their behalf. Pay attention to this, because the most terrifying sentence in Joshua 7 is not the one about the stoning. It is the one in the very first verse, a verse you can miss if you are reading fast. It says, "The Israelites were unfaithful regarding the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel, not against Achan, against Israel, one man, one tent, one buried robe, one buried pile of silver, one buried bar of gold, and the anger of God burned against the whole nation." This is not the prosperity gospel. This is not karma. This is the covenant logic of a God who made a family out of wanderers and said, "You are one people now. What one of you does, all of you carry." The joy of Jericho was shared. The shame of Ai was shared. The victory ahead will be shared, and the sin in the camp is everyone's problem. Now for the three things you need to take away from the Valley of Achor. The first is the one you already feel. Hidden sin creates public consequences. This is not a law invented by Joshua. It is not unique to the Old Testament, or to Israel, or to the ancient Near East. It is the structure of reality. It is baked into the way human communities work. The deception that feels private almost never stays private. The compromise you told yourself was contained almost never stays contained. Achan thought the robe, the silver, and the gold were his secret. They were not. They were the reason 36 men died at Ai. The second thing is this: God does not advance with a compromised camp. He said it plainly, "I will not be with you anymore unless you deal with what is devoted to destruction." Unless. That word should land with weight, because the God of Joshua 7 is not the God of lowered expectations. He does not revise the battle plan around the sin. He does not find a workaround. He stops, he waits, and he tells Joshua to get up off his face and deal with it. The presence and power of God are not automatic. They are covenantal. They move in relationship. And a relationship built on hidden betrayal is a relationship in crisis, whether we feel the crisis yet or not. The third thing, and this is the one that will stay with you longest, is what God does with the Valley of Achor, the valley of trouble, the valley that bore Achan's name and his heap of stones. You would think that valley would stay cursed forever. You would think God would let it be a monument to failure, a warning carved into the landscape. But 700 years after Joshua, a prophet named Hosea speaks for God to a nation that has once again broken the covenant, a nation that has once again buried things under the tent floor and told itself nobody was looking. And in the middle of that prophecy, God says something extraordinary. He says, I will lead her into the desert and speak tenderly to her. I will give her back her vineyards and will make the Valley of Achor a door of hope, a door of hope, the exact valley named for the exact sin, the valley where Israel stoned a man and raised a heap of stones and walked away in grief. God says that valley, that one, not a better valley, not a cleaned up valley, that valley is going to become a doorway. This is not a small thing. This is the God of the Bible saying that the worst places, the places named after your worst moment, the valleys you built monuments in and then tried to forget, are precisely the places he plans to sing over. The Valley of Achor becomes a door of hope, not despite what happened there, but because God is the kind of God who walks back into the worst places we have ever been and does something new. That is the story of Achan. That is the truth buried under the tent floor. That is what it cost, and that is what it can become.